Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator, and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about chakras, as they are known in Hinduism, or energy ray centers, as they are known in the Law of One. Chakras were first mentioned in the Vedas, ancient Hindu texts of spiritual knowledge written more than 3,000 years ago in India. What exactly are chakras, and how are they similar to or different from energy ray centers as described in the Law of One? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I am facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups on the LNL research page shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook page, and we do meet twice a week on Zoom. Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, and Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom meetings. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com and we'll put you on our mailing list. We usually send out email updates once a week just to let you know what we're doing that week, and includes these Zoom links as well. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of our podcast episodes, as well as Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty, Gary Bean, Trisha Bean, Austin Bean from the LNL Research Channeling team. If you're watching any of these on your TV, they are divided up into chapters, so you can skip ahead by chapter if you don't want to watch the whole thing from beginning to end. If you're watching on your computer, below the title you should see a list of topics and timestamps as well, so that you can skip ahead as seems appropriate to you. As mentioned, today our topic is on chakras and energy centers. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, if you could introduce yourself by your name and where you're calling from, that would be awesome. Starting with Ashley.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley, calling in from New Jersey. It's great to be here with all of you.
So great to have you here. Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael calling in from Southgate, Michigan, and I'm really happy to be here.
And we are happy to have you here. Susan?
Hi everyone, I'm Susan and I'm calling in from the greater Boston, Massachusetts area.
Nice. So nice to have all three of you here. I am really looking forward to our conversation today. Just wanted to put out a reminder to our viewers that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One or Hinduism or chakras. We are just normal people like you, just kind of hanging out and sharing our opinions on things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything we say could be wrong. You are welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. I should also note that this episode was recorded on Saturday, November 9th. That's about 3 days after the 2024 elections, where Donald Trump was reelected to a second term as President of the United States of America. This, by all objective measures, was a significant event in U.S. history, and all of us are still processing this in our own ways. So although I'm not planning to talk much about politics here today, it's probably going to come up more than a few times, since it is a great example of how many people may block or unblock any of their energy centers or chakras when confronted with catalysts related to our political system in the weeks, months, years to come. Otherwise, I will say, if you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entities known as Ra and Kuo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on overview of energy centers. If not familiar with any of those, then here are a few things that might help give you some context for everything else that we are talking about today. What is the Law of One? You could say that it is a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. Pretty much everything we say in this episode and everything we say in every other episode is really just basically another way of saying that all is one and that one thing is love. You should know that all of the reading passages that we're looking at today came through a process called channeling. You could think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, spirits of deceased, higher selves, inner planes entities, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. There are two types of channeling that we look at in L&L research. The first is called trance channeling. This is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious, as if asleep, really not aware at all of what words are coming out of their mouths. This is how the Ra contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in 1981 to 84. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're somewhat aware of what is being said, but they really have no idea what words they're going to say next. They are just saying the words that come to them in that meditative state. This is how the Quo contact happened, that started in 1986 and continues to this day. So who is Quo? You could say that Quo is a group entity or a collective entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, and Hatan at 4th density. What is a social memory complex? You could think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth merged into one group mind, which apparently is the next step in our evolutionary history. So what is a density? You can think of a density as different dimensions, different levels of reality, different levels of consciousness. Imagine that the elements of water, air, fire, earth actually have some primitive form of consciousness. We would call whatever that is first density. Second density, you could say, would be the density of animals and plants. Clearly a quantum leap in consciousness above that of the elements. Third density, we would say, is the level of consciousness where humans and cetaceans like dolphins and whales are. Again, a significant quantum leap above the level of consciousness found in plants and other animals, for example. Fourth density, we would say, is where you get to the consciousness of social memory complexes. As you can imagine, this is a big quantum leap beyond the level of consciousness of individual humans, an entire planetary consciousness. All of humanity merged into one planetary consciousness. Fifth density is whatever comparable quantum leap would be above fourth density, and sixth density would be whatever is a quantum leap above and beyond that. Who the fuck knows what any of those things are? That is millions of years into the future. But again, who is Quo? Quo appears to be an entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, and Hatan at 4th density. The first contact with the entity known as Quo was done by the L&L research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then and up to the present day by the L&L research channeling team. Session transcripts can be found in the L&L research conscious channeling library. So let's talk a little bit about chakras, what they are and what they mean. For starters, it would probably be helpful to say, in Hinduism, what is referred to as prana, and in the law of one, what is referred to as intelligent energy, flows from the creator, from the universe, from our logos, up through the earth into our red ray or root chakra, and all the way up through the rest of our energy centers, and leaves through the violet ray or crown chakra. So you could say that the red ray or root chakra deals with survival, sexual reproduction, fundamental vitality. Again, this is where intelligent energy from the earth enters our energy system. Orange ray or sacral chakra would be the next level up, that deals with personal identity, relationships of self to other individuals. From there, the energy goes up into the yellow ray or solar plexus chakra. This deals with our identity in groups, our relationships with groups of others, be it our family or work people or political parties or racial groups or whatever. From there, the energy goes up into our green ray or heart chakra. This deals with universal, unconditional love for all entities, including the ones that we have the hardest time getting along with. And it is the springboard to higher chakras and what is called intelligent infinity. Next up is the blue ray or throat chakra. This deals with wisdom, light, honesty, clarity, and inspiration. It is involved with communication to others, our entirety of beingness. From there, energy goes up into the indigo ray or third eye chakra. This is referred to as the gateway to intelligent infinity and the law of one. It is the center of the adept of magical workings of what they refer to as work in consciousness, or really cool woo-woo stuff. Lastly would be the violet ray or crown chakra. You could say this represents our vibratory essence, or the sum or energetic signature of the self. It reflects our overall balance and where energy passes outward from there. Panelists, anything you want to add? Anything I missed on this? Ashley, anything you want to add to this?
No, that was a great explanation for the concept of chakras and energy centers and how they affect our lives and how they manifest in our current incarnations.
Indeed. And we are going to go more in depth into most of these as we go along, but just for starters. Michael, anything you wanted to add to this overview of chakras, energy rays?
No, honestly, I think you summed it up pretty well.
That's good. Susan?
I agree. It's perfect, just as you described it.
Well, coming from the three of you, I would say that means a lot to me because, yes, each of you is here because you have a special informed perspective on the subject, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about. Let's talk a little bit about balancing energy centers. I do have a couple passages that I wanted to read through together and hear our panelists' thoughts on those. The first passage is from the Raw Contact. This was session 40, question 4. Ra said, "The fully activated being is rare. Much emphasis is laid upon the harmonies and balances of individuals. It is necessary for graduation across densities for the primary energy centers to be functioning in such a way as to communicate with intelligent infinity and to appreciate and bask in this light in all of its purity. However, to fully activate each energy center is the mastery of few, for each energy center has a variable speed of rotation or activity. The important observation to be made once all necessary centers are activated to the minimal necessary degree is the harmony and balance between these energy centers." And then in session 41, question 19, Ross said, "Each energy center has a wide range of rotational speed, as you may see it more clearly in relation to color brilliance. The more strongly the will of the entity concentrates upon and refines or purifies each energy center, the more brilliant or rotationally active each center will be. It is not necessary for the energy centers to be activated in order in the case of the self-aware entity. Thusly, entities may have extremely brilliant energy centers while being quite unbalanced in their violet ray aspect due to attention paid to the totality of the experience of the entity. The key to balance may then be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities toward experiences, thus using experience to the utmost, then applying the balancing exercises and achieving the proper attitude for the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in violet ray. This is why the brilliance or rotational speed of the energy centers is not considered above the balanced aspect or the violet ray manifestation of an entity in regarding harvestability. For those entities which are unbalanced, especially as to the primary rays, will not be capable of sustaining the impact of the love and light of intelligent energy to the extent necessary for harvest." Really beautiful passages here, and the big takeaway lesson that I'm getting from this is that it's not really so much a matter of how strong or how intense we make any one energy center or a couple of energy centers. It really is about the overall balance of all of these together in terms of how we are able to grow and evolve spiritually. Well, it seems really important to me. Michael, any thoughts, reflections on either of these two passages?
The upper passage where Ra was speaking about how not all energy centers need to be active in order to use the ones above it. I know a lot of the more service to self entities, they bypass the heart immediately, going straight into the communication, straight into the blue chakra. So I can absolutely see how that happens. I know he even spoke of entities on his planet that did that came in during their harvest, that actually graduated into the negative.
Indeed. Yeah, I had not thought of that. But for sure, I think this is why we have panel discussions, because each of us like picks up on different things and notices different things, and I appreciate that. Susan, was there anything from either of these passages wanted to share with our viewers?
Yeah, I really liked where they were mentioning about having responses. Was that part of what we were? Yeah. And this honest, spontaneous response you have is showing you the where the balancing might need to be. For instance, if you feel anger, I see that often as coming from the solar plexus energy center or ray. And there's a lot of ways that you can go about balancing it. There's no perfect or right way, but that's your calling card, your hallmark that you've got something going on because you've got some strong emotion around it. The so if you experience anger, and I see that as the solar plexus, you can focus on the color of it to find balance, breathing in and seeing it expand, breathing out, letting it spin and concentrate down. Other things I've done through music, it's really funny. The other day I was listening to Imagine Dragons, and they seem like a really solar plexus group. And maybe dancing to it or just letting some physical activity. I do a lot of yoga, so that helps to balance energy centers as well. And also, being kind of a science nerd, I think of the crystalline structure of an energy center as well. And so seeing that as aligning and the ionic bonds of this, positive and negative, where you're balancing to get more of a seeing the other side of it. It's if and you so it's more of a mental practice that you're looking at. So those are some of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about the balancing of the energy centers.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I would think for many of our viewers, if they have not thought of yoga, yoga seems like a very natural way to find that balance of energy centers and the balance of the physical and the spiritual part of oneself, I would think. Ashley, anything wanted to add?
Yes, I love what everyone's saying about the energy centers and there needing to be this balance between you going in meditation and activating them, focusing on them as you're talking about, Susan, with this exercise. But then, as Ra is saying, that we also can have the opportunity for balancing and activating the energy centers through direct experiences. That's like what we have in our daily lives with our friends and family and loved ones. That's another way to work with them from both angles. For example, I used to have some really debilitating intestinal issues, and part of my healing journey was doing energy center meditations and focusing particularly on the orange ray center and making sure that in my visualizations I was encasing my digestive system in that corresponding energy center. But at the same time, I was taking a physical look at any potential blockages that I might have had in my relationships with food, my understandings to the relationship with food and with others in terms of how I express myself, that came into play as well. So it's just coming into my mind that there is a dynamic between physical action and metaphysical action when you want to balance your energy centers.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Again, you're bringing perspectives into this that are new to me, but I'm guessing more than a few of our viewers can relate to. Thank you, everyone. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to add before we take a look at some passages related to unblocking energy centers? Yeah.
I'll just add, Ashley, thank you for sharing that. That reminds me that I went through the same sort of thing you did, but interestingly enough, it was a balancing of energy in the red ray for me. So I think that points out how it can be very individual, and we don't have to stay hyper focused on, well, they had that experience, so that must be for me as well. So keeping an open mind.
For sure. Yeah. I'm sorry, Ashley, you have something to say?
Oh, just an agreement, and just an agreement with that it is unique to everyone. And Rise sounds like we're getting permission to not beat ourselves up if we don't have every single energy center fully activated, because that's not why everyone is here. Very few have fully activated energy centers. It is more about the dance between them, the dance between your heart, between your relationship with self and other self and your world.
Well said, indeed. Yeah, it's probably worth noting that they've mentioned harvest or graduation both in this passage and the first passage that I shared. I believe at the end of the second paragraph here, they said, those entities which are unbalanced, especially as to the primary rays, will not be capable of sustaining the impact of the love and light of intelligent infinity to the extent necessary for harvest. And again, for those who are kind of new to the law of one or not familiar with this kind of goes back to the densities that we were talking about. Graduation or harvest refers to the process of making the leap from one density to the next. It happens for both individuals and for individuals and the entire planetary population as a collective or group. So you could say the big challenge for many, if not most everybody here in third density Earth, is to achieve that balance of energy centers that is necessary to make the graduation from third density to fourth density. And the key to that, of course, is, as I think somebody mentioned, it's the choice. For those who were not aware of this, in third density is referred to as the density of choice. That's where each of us has attained a level of consciousness where we are hopefully able to recognize spirit or the creator either in ourself or in all other selves as well. So there's a choice of two paths to make to fourth density. One is called service to others, or STO for short. The other is called service to self, or STS for short. So in order to graduate, shall we say, or be harvested, shall we say, to fourth density, you need to achieve a vibrational level of caring about others at least as much as yourself, and maybe even putting the needs and welfare of others just a little bit perhaps ahead of yourself at times. That's the service to others path. The service to self path, on the other hand, is dedicated to just looking at your own welfare and needs 95% of your time and not giving any thought or care to the welfare or needs of others more than 5% of the time. You could also say that service to others really means seeing Creator in yourself and all others, thinking of others more than you think of yourself, seeking to empower others as equals is referred to as the positive path. And in order to graduate, you need to be at least 51% service to others, 49% service to self or better in order to move on to the next level of spiritual evolution. On the service to self path, you could think of it as seeing the creator only in yourself, not in others, thinking of yourself more than thinking of others, seeking to control others to gain power for self. This is called the negative path. In order to graduate from third density to fourth density, you do need to, apparently, according to our friends in the Confederation, achieve a vibrational state where you are only thinking of yourself 95% of the time and never thinking of the needs of others more than 5% of the time. And this would be the place where it would be really important to note that in session 7, question 15, Ra said, "The law of one blinks neither at the light or the darkness, but is available for both service to others and service to self." So no matter how terrible the service to self path might seem to those who are on the service to others path, or vice versa, they are considered both equally legitimate paths to the creator, because either you're recognizing the creator in yourself or the creator in others, but either way, you are growing closer to creator. So really important to understand. Otherwise, panelists, anything else to add before we take a look at a couple more passages? Let's take a look at unblocking energy centers. There are a couple passages that I wanted to look at. The first is from September 19th, 2015, and Quo said, "Look then to those where blockages are found. Attempt to balance each blockage with its opposite, that you may find an evenness of flow where before there was energy that was halted in its movement upwards. And in this fashion, you may determine where your focus of attention needs to be placed. It is the journey of a lifetime to unblock each succeeding center of energy so that the white light of the one creator moves unimpeded through each center of energy and remains white throughout the journey. However, do not feel that you have in any way failed if there is coloration to your light, for this is why you have incarnated. It is necessary to engage in the learning of various lessons in the overall plan of each soul's evolution. The way lessons are learned is to discover where there is a blockage in the overall energy patterns of each individual and program these into the incarnational life stream that attention might be put upon them and energies directed to balance and clear each center." There's a lot we could unpack on that one. I had one other passage that I did want to look at first. This was from October 13th to 1989. Quo said, "Feel the love in the moment. It flows through you. You are not responsible for producing it. You are only responsible for patiently, again and again, where you sense your contraction around a trigger, around pain, around suffering, beginning to do that work of remembrance that releases fear so that you remember who you are and why you are here. You are a child of the one infinite creator, and you came here to create a space through which light may flow in order that you may help enlightening the consciousness of planet Earth. Each time that you dismantle a trigger and instead gaze at the creator within one who is blessing you by attempting to do you harm, you become calmer and stronger and more able to see the truth beyond the illusions of the mirrors that are so distorted and so shadowed." I love these passages so much, and they seem particularly resonant now in the days following the most recent election, when I could imagine a lot of people are feeling contractions of fear, feeling blockages in their red ray center for survival, their yellow ray centers for how to deal with, relate to other groups of individuals, like those from another political party, for example, or the green ray, just the ability to love all unconditionally, regardless of how they voted or how they didn't vote, I would think is a big deal. But the part about identifying triggers, finding out what it is that you're thinking at the time that makes you feel fear, and finding a way to dismantle those, And there's a million different ways to do it, unique for each person, I would think is really important lessons to be thinking about this time. Susan, did you have any thoughts, reflections on either, both of these passages?
I do. The perspective that I'd like to offer from this is taken from session 50, question 2, where Ra recommends that when an experience happens, so catalyst or the pain and suffering, that you draw it in, since the experience comes to us through the red ray first, that you place that experience in each one of the rays in succession, so you can find where the blockage might be occurring. So it's like, does my survival feel threatened in the red ray? Is the on into the orange ray, is my personhood, am I stopped from having intimate relationships with family, friends, lovers, whatever, and onward through your power center, where it's your societal connections, through your heart, where love and compassion is, and your throat through the honesty and truthfulness of the situation, what truly it is. And this is where you're starting to tap more into the wisdom. And I find that I like to complete it with the indigo ray, which is where you're tapping into your higher self. And there was something said, you'll have to pardon me putting my glasses. That's the incarnational programming. That's such a perfect word for it, because when you get to the indigo ray, you're finding what that big picture is. And I do shamanic work, and my power animal for that is eagle. An eagle rises high above and has a very sharp and clear image of everything. Like, you can see the field mouse moving in the grasses, but it can also see the very big tapestry of it. And I find a lot of times when you go to that highest level, you say, oh, that really hard experience that you wish had never happened when you're going through it, it led you to exactly where you are now, that you wouldn't have made choices. So I think that would be I've used this situation of pulling it through the South Pole all the way up to the North Pole as a workable process for myself in the last 15 to 16 years.
Nice. Such a beautiful practice that bet a lot of our viewers will find helpful as well. Ashley, anything you wanted to share on either or both of these passages? Are there, Ashley?
These are just really beautiful and so clear in how they express how we can empower ourselves to work through anything that comes up. The experiences, I guess you would call it the real meat and potatoes of balancing the energy centers, comes from, again, our interactions in our everyday life. It's when they bring these up, they don't talk about certain meditation techniques that you do in some hidden ashram away from society. This is the work of being in the world with other people. This is where you can find out what you need to work on in your heart and how you work through it. So that's very empowering for me to look at, okay, why did that trigger me? And what does that say about me in this moment? And another powerful thing is, I like the phrase, I think it was lower, gazing instead at the creator, like gazing instead at the all-encompassing force that is intelligent infinity in that source or situation that you see as a threat or as an enemy. When I look at the intelligent infinity in another person that might be the antithesis of what I believe in, then it's a lot harder for me to stay resentful or stay angry, because I'm like, oh, wow, that's the one infinite creator. Oh, wow, that's the love that encompasses all. It's right there. And I'm at the point where I value that love more than I value holding on to my triggers and negative emotions. I don't, that when I have to compare the two, it's like, no, I'm going after the love. I'm going after the one infinite creator. So I just saw that that was a powerful practice.
Yeah, which is a great callback to what we said at the beginning of the podcast about, what is the law of one? The law of one is basically the idea, understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. So as you're saying, if you can look at somebody who you're having a really hard time with as creator or as the face of love, because apparently that's all there is in the universe, then yeah, it kind of changes the way you look at things. And I have certainly found helpful in dismantling the triggers that I have around people that seem to be the antithesis of what I thought this was about. Really appreciate your sharing that. Michael, did you have any thoughts, reflections to add on anything here?
Yeah, listening to this, boy, it reminds me that I need to start doing my meditations for the catalysts of the day. To really enjoy doing that. It's been a few weeks, but just by going through the day at the very end, once you get home and the day is done, back and go through your catalyst, go through what challenged you to the most. I mean, we love going through that in our head, don't we? We love the worst choices we made, or when we made a fool of ourselves, we'll go back through and kick ourselves mentally for that. In meditation, I like going through and trying it in different routes, looking at it from different perspectives. The more I do that, the more I started just in the moment, seeing the catalyst for what it was. Just by meditating through the day, at the end of the day, through the day, I find out that I can see the catalysts right there, and it's easier to meet them by doing that.
Nice. Yeah, and I don't think I have any passages specifically relating to that, but I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think our friends in the Confederation have really encouraged us to take time at the end of the day to reflect back on what happened over the course of the day and whatever catalyst that we may have dealt with. And kind of like you're suggesting, go through your energy rays, and you don't have to do it at the end of the day. You could do it anytime. Go through your energy rays and see if you can get a sense for where you may or may not have blockages in any one, and see if you can dismantle those triggers or blockages like Ashley was alluding to. Does anybody else have anything to add? Really appreciate everything everyone's brought up so far.
I can't do that meditation at the end of the day because I forget most of the things that I experience throughout the day and the learnings, but the actual events, they just fly right out of my head and probably go back to the one infinite creator. So and you're right, Michael. Although it didn't start for me through an end of day meditation, I do notice that in the moment of catalyst, I can enter that other state and reflect on it. Okay, this is not just bad things happening. This is not just I can work with it in the moment. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I rarely, if ever, do that end of the day review thing, and I sometimes feel bad about it, and the rest of the time I say, "Oh fuck it, I don't have time. I'll deal with it. I'll get to it." Did anybody else have anything they wanted to share before we take a look at the lower energy centers? Sounds good. So I had a couple passages that I wanted to look at relating to the lower energy centers in particular. On March 4th, 2005, Quo said, and this passage is edited for brevity, the first three chakras, red, orange, and yellow, are the chakras which we would suggest it is helpful to visit each day, every day, asking yourself in meditation, what are my issues with survival? What are my issues with personal relationships with myself and with those about me? And what are my issues with the groups which I have decided to join as a human being in consensus reality? That sounds oddly like what we were just talking about. The reason that we so strenuously encourage this work is that where you want to go next in the next chakra requires that these three chakras, the basic chakras, be in sufficient balance that the infinite supply of unconditional love and energy for life coming into your energy system from the root chakra or red ray chakra can move upwards without significant blockage. We do not say without distortion, but without significant blockage into the heart. If you cannot clear the lower chakras enough that you are getting a good supply of the infinite love and light of the one creator into the heart chakra, then this is where you need to stop for the moment. It is important for you to be able to rest in the sacred space of your own open heart and to know yourself there before you can really do work in consciousness with any confidence that you will not harm yourself or confuse yourself more than you clarify things for yourself. As we have said many times through this instrument, there are what this instrument calls lions at the gate, guarding your entry into your own heart. Listen to these lions and find the patience with yourself to do the work that it takes to make entry into your heart in such a way that the lions not only allow you to pass, but give you the feeling that they are now guarding your back. Then take a few moments to rest in the consciousness of yourself in its larger sense. For you have, when you pass the first three chakras and move into the heart, moved from the outer personality into the inner truth, from space-time into time-space, and from judgment into redemption or forgiveness. For you have become the larger you. The I, that is the first person singular of you, is significantly changed in the atmosphere and the sanctity of the open heart. When you feel that you are beginning to vibrate with unconditional love, you have then achieved that expanded awareness of the truth of who you are. Resting then in this truth, it is now safe for you to do your work in consciousness. There is another passage that I wanted to look at. This was from May 13th, 2008. Quo said, and again, we would suggest that one key to opening the higher chakras is to be sure that you are getting full power through to the heart from the infinite love and light of the Creator that moves through from the base chakra upwards and out of the top of your head. If you have issues with sex or love of life, if you find your relationships lacking, if you judge yourself or others, if you find your relationships with your family or your work troubled, all of these things can limit or even stop the flow of energy into the heart. Consequently, always move back with true humility and begin again each time that you sense that you are being triggered and that you are closing off, shutting down, and limiting the light that can flow into your open heart. Really beautiful set of passages here that I think kind of go back to things that we talked about just before this, which was kind of the importance or the value of going back and looking at where you may or may not have blockages in those chakras, looking at where you might have issues involving survival, fears of survival, or difficulties in getting along with a spouse or a friend or individual, or how you're dealing with groups of others, like, say, political parties or folks who voted differently from you last week, or just difficulty in opening your heart to unconditional love. And as they said here, if you really want to go on to the upper chakras and have the cool experiences of your third eye chakra and do work in consciousness and do the work of an adept, they're really emphasizing in no uncertain terms how important it is to do the balance work of balancing your lower energy centers before you try to work in the upper energy centers. And I think that's important. I would think for a lot of folks in the Law of One, folks who get into metaphysical stuff, they really want to do the cool stuff in the upper levels. But cannot be overemphasized how more important it is to do the balance and the work in the lower chakras. That has been my experience. Ashley, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly that a lot of our progress starts from those first three, but I consider them to be like the earth-based chakras because they're very much grounded in our 3D experience with other selves and even the organisms of our planet, the birds, the bees, the trees. I think it's very special that the primary flow of intelligent energy from the one infinite creator starts at these earth-based centers, that it comes up from the depths of the earth, from the ground into the feet. So whether you're going from above or below to above, it's still the sacred light of the one infinite creator. And that's why they deserve just as much attention and as many exercises to balance as the others. It's like you're making your foundation. And I definitely do that where I reflect and make sure that how are my issues with survival? How are my issues with other selves? And if I have issues, my focus is there before looking at anything else.
Nice. Yeah, and as you were speaking, I was thinking I hadn't really quite thought of it that way before, but that red ray, that is the entry point through the earth, and that is first density would be the density of the elements of earth, water, air, and fire, and that connection to the earth. I think that's kind of what you were suggesting at some point, just this connection to Mother Earth,
Yes.
that divine feminine energy. That is the very, very entry point for all of this, and if we have blockages there, then it's kind of like doesn't really get much farther than that. Michael, any thoughts, reflections to add?
Yeah, the balancing on the first three. Yeah, this is why I find the law of one is just so helpful with that, because whenever you start finding yourself out of balance, you can always remember that. You can always go back to that, and just remember that everything is unity. It will take you back to balance. It will help you balance out, and then you can start to see it from a base level, the other person and what they might be offering you. It's not always, yelling or whatever they're doing, whatever you're facing.
Yeah, indeed. Susan, anything to add?
Yeah, both Ashley and Michael made me think about a passage that always has interested me but mystified me, which is the workings of an adept is power, love, and wisdom. And I'd actually be curious to hear if anyone wants to weigh in on that, because as Ashley mentioned, and I completely agree, the yellow ray, which I consider the power chakra, is earth-based. And the heart is kind of like our balance point, and then wisdom. Does anyone have thoughts on the adepthood and why it reaches down into the third ray?
Ashley, any thoughts on that?
My immediate thought, Susan, is that the yellow ray energy center is also, in addition to being associated with our relationship with others, it's also a center, has been known as a center of will. And you cultivate and use your will in magical workings because it takes will in order to do magic, which means making changes in consciousness at will. So that's kind of where I see that comes from.
Well said. Michael, any thoughts on that?
On that, I don't think I could add too much to what Ashley said there, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. I can't say I've really thought about it that much. And I don't think I've ever thought of the solar plexus chakra as necessarily being the energy ray of power. I'd most definitely think of the green ray as the ray of unconditional love. And I do think of blue ray as the ray of wisdom. If anything, power might come above that in the indigo ray, I'm thinking, but I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Susan?
Yeah, I might be reaching more into my yogic philosophy for that. Um, that's what they look at. But it called to mind the first card in the raw tarot deck, the Magician, and that's a card of will, I would say, where they're pointing at the table with all the earthly objects, but also the hand is raised, drawing power from, or whatever, from higher up. So, yeah, it's giving me food for thought.
Just happen to have that handy here. Yeah. Since you told us before we started recording that you had some thoughts on archetypical mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting point. Yeah, for sure. And we are going to take a closer look at indigo ray and blue ray and green ray. Did anybody have any thoughts they wanted to share before we take a closer look at green ray and the heart chakra?
I just wanted to add that Earth, Gaia, is an amazing companion for working with the earth-based energy centers. If you can feel connected to the grass and the trees and appreciate birds, the bugs, the creeping things, this will nourish your red ray. This will give you that sense of security baseline that you need to begin to accept intelligent energy in its fullness. And when you work with nature, it gives you very primary experiences with how to treat yourself as you see how Earth treats itself. It is all about tending to itself and preservation and nurture. And when you look at Earth and see Earth doing that for itself, you do that for you. And when you see how Earth, in its yellow ray capacity, cares for other beings, allowing rain to fall and soil to nourish, you also have an example of how you are to nourish and care for your brothers and sisters. So that's it. Thank you.
So beautifully said, and really cannot overstate the importance of our relationship with Mother Earth at this time and balancing of masculine and feminine energies. I think it's fair to say our friends in the Confederation have said many, many times that so many here have incarnated in order to clean up karmic residue from having blown up the planets they previously incarnated on, or the way this planet has been mistreated so far up to this time. And there was a podcast episode we did recently on divine femininity that talked about the importance of balancing male and female energies, particularly in relation to Mother Earth. Would encourage you to check it out if you haven't seen it. Otherwise, why don't we go ahead and take a look at a couple passages, actually a few passages related to green ray or the heart chakra. The first one is from November 13th, 2010. Quo said, "There are as many ways to close the heart as there are emotions in the human breast, and there are as many ways to open it again as the remembering consciousness can find. But it is not necessary to will the self to be so and so or such and such. It is necessary only to intend to open the heart open, to keep the heart open and serve, and hold above all that frequency of the infinite love and light of the one creator." And on April 16th, 1995, Quo said, "The key to using the light is forgiveness, mercy, charity, love. One may walk into the light and yet not see light. If one has confusion and puzzlement upon the mind, one can move through an entire beautiful day and see no light. And just so within. One can walk into one's own season of blossom and yet blossom not, nor see the sun, nor take food and drink from it. If one has closed one's heart, the light cannot survive and will simply be reflected and used elsewhere. Think of the darkness of winter and feel the contraction that occurs as the roots of being curl down into the earth, seeking water and nutriment. So are the roots of the self contracted and turned and curled inward, seeking and not finding nutriment. And then light comes, and the decision is made to let go of all things, save the reaching toward that light. There is expansion of self. There is the opening of the heart with these magic words, I forgive. I love those passages so much, and that first paragraph is one that's kind of in my all-time favorite passages from Quo. There are as many ways to close the heart as there are emotions in the human heart. Countless ways that our heart gets closed throughout the day, thinking about the events of the day or what's happening in the news. And there are as many ways to open it again as the remembering consciousness can find. And has been mentioned already, it's unique for each person, the way that one finds to open their heart, maybe by going for a walk, gardening, being in the earth, or listening to great music, or whatever one does to open one's heart is really one of the greatest things that we can do. And the emphasis on forgiveness, I think, is really important. And again, we're recording this only 3 days after the 2024 elections. And I would imagine when this is uploaded, maybe a couple weeks from now, there's still going to be more than a few people who are struggling to forgive people who voted perhaps differently than they did. And I can only say that if you are on the service to others path and you are trying to graduate to fourth density, that is the key to graduating to fourth density, to forgive in your heart those who might have voted against you, those who seem to be standing for the things that are the opposite of what you stand for. I'm working on it, and so is everybody else, I'm sure. Otherwise, Michael, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
You know, empathy I found is so important for this. Just being able to put yourselves in the shoes of somebody else and trying to see it from their point of view, or at least trying to put yourselves in their shoes and seeing it from their point of view. I found it's so much easier to forgive if you can try to do that, if you're able to do that and find out some of the background.
Indeed. Susan?
Yeah, I agree with Michael that empathy is a great path into forgiveness. I'll share a short story, just opening myself up a little bit here. I feel as though one of my pre-incarnative choices was to learn self-love. And so I was born into a family that didn't provide that sort of environment of love and safety as much as one would have hoped that for every child, that they're born into a good family that loves them and all that. But it was recently, more or less, that I realized that I chose this so that I could find love for myself and not rely on others to provide the love for me. So, and once I did that, I was able to find the forgiveness and the empathy that maybe these were two really great beings that volunteered to be my parents so that I could have that experience and find the love. So definitely, I'm in alignment with Michael on that.
Nice. Yeah, and I would think for many on the service to others path, it's that empathy that makes it so painful. Being able to feel the pain and suffering of others and caring is part of what makes this incarnation so difficult, and the forgiveness perhaps so difficult. And I guess it reminds me that those who have chosen the service to self path, which is an equally legitimate path of service to others, do have to bypass the heart in order to progress onto fifth and sixth density. That requirement of 95% service to self means you really cannot empathize for others. You cannot care about others. I kind of doubt at some point you can love anyone other than yourself, which means it's a really difficult path to follow. It is a legitimate path, but as our friends in the Confederation said, it's a way longer, roundabout, lonely path that is very difficult. And if you care at all about loving others, yeah, that's a really difficult path to commit to. Ashley, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yes, I too, I agree with you, Jonathan, that the STS path, closing off the heart in that way, it's a very dark and lonely road. And when I consider the amount of isolation and darkness that an STS committed, consciously made the choice and is going in that direction entity has made, that actually does elicit a compassion response, because I think how alone you are, how closed off from everything you are, how much in darkness you are. And that's how I'm able to not put up a wall between myself and STS, because I understand, oh, you're very alone, you're very isolated. It would be nice if you had some companions along your journey, if you had some love in your life. So that takes more of my focus than, oh, we're different, or oh, you're bad, you're evil. And I love that we do have so many ways of opening the heart, and that there is no set way. Whatever is for you that can bring in that joy, that can make you feel safe enough in the light and love of the one infinite creator to put down those walls and accept someone in, do whatever you have to do. Forgiveness is a very interesting word for me. Over the years, it just looks like another word for love, because the minute you're able to love, is forgiveness is a natural byproduct for that. And yes, we do close our hearts all the time, but we can open them just as many times.
For sure. Yeah, and I believe they have said in so many words, if you can open your heart, that's really the best thing you can do to be in service to others, which might be one of the other passages I had queued up. Let me take a look. I have some other passages I wanted to look at. This is also from November 13th, 2010, elsewhere in that session. Quo said, if you are able in your daily round of activities to find this open heart functioning as fully as possible with every entity that you meet, every entity with whom you exchange any kind of energy, then this loving vibration that is set up between two of you or more is then felt by each other entity upon the planet that seeks love and light. For you are truly all one being. All entities upon the planet, whether positively, negatively, or neutrally polarized, would feel this love if all were conscious seekers of the truth. However, because most are not conscious seekers of truth, this love vibration then goes into the subconscious mind of the being to be used as it is possible when this entity is able to realize in any degree the conscious nature of its purpose for being on the earth at this time. That is, of course, as we said, the opening of the Green Ray Energy Center. So as you are a seeker of truth, consciously aware of your journey of seeking, as you are able to consciously share your love vibration with any other entity at any other time, this vibration becomes available to all other entities upon this planetary sphere to be used as possible when the time is right for that entity. And on February 10th, 2008, they said, It may be said that any time a heart opens, the entire creation sings. And on April 18th, 2006. This incarnation of yours, my brother, is not about acquiring information or wisdom. It is about opening your heart and becoming able to share and carry the maximum amount of light and love as it flows from the Creator to the earth and through your physical and metaphysical bodies. If you can open your heart in this moment, you are doing the maximum amount that you can do to serve the Creator and the creation. I love that passage so much. It's so simple and yet so difficult at the same time. But for those of us on the service to others path, you're saying, and they have said this in other places, other times as well, if you can open your heart at this moment, when maybe it's hardest to do that, you are doing the maximum amount that you can do to serve the Creator and the creation. And everything else is just whatever you're wanking around doing in the meantime, trying to get to that point. Love those passages. Any thoughts, reflections on anything there, Susan?
Wanking around.
I know, sorry. That wasn't in the script. I totally improv that.
They didn't channel wanking around. Okay.
If they did, it would be Latwii. Latwii would do that. Yeah, no doubt.
I would just share that I got a vision of how in the springtime, how excited I am to see those first blossoms, the buds on the plants forming, and you're going to have these beautiful flowers. And that was just what came to me from that passage. I really don't have anything else to share, just that vision of how it's in its what do you call it when you're it's forming, but it's yeah, when those plants are just wanking around.
We'll edit this out, don't worry.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Yeah, but it's in potentiation. I think that was the word you see it and you know how beautiful it's going to be. And so it's just this garden and how all creation sings with our potential to love and forgive and show compassion. Yeah, that's kind of the vision I had.
It's a beautiful visual. I love it. And it seems to go so nicely with that first passage on the screen that even though it is invisible to our eyes, anytime you set up a loving, open heart vibration between two or more, it is felt by every other entity on the planet that seeks love and light. And that really evokes an image to me of flowers blooming in the spring, for sure. Ashley, anything to add?
Yes, I love this too, that love is the key, and it's expressed so beautifully. And I'm also thinking of the Bible verse where Jesus is saying, where there are two or more gathered in my name, there I am also. And what was Jesus? The embodiment of Christ consciousness. And what is Christ consciousness? Well, it's unconditional love. So where two or more are gathered, it's like it's saying the same thing. There is that planetary love. And sometimes as seekers and adepts, we can feel like our little meditation, our little act of kindness or thoughts for others doesn't have an effect, but it does. It's actually, as we're seeing here, a planetary effect with every single positive emotion and thought. So it's just kind of empowering. And I love towards the end where it's saying, as long as you're holding the maximum amount of love and light in your heart, you're doing the maximum amount of service that you can. And as it relates to like those who might be feeling like if you don't have a negative response, if you're not super frustrated, if you're not super hurt, that perhaps that is spiritual bypassing or this kind of thing. My thought is that there with there being so many other selves who might be in a state of trauma, in a state of pain, it is my cause to hold that maximum amount of light, love in my heart for them. It's like we are called to bring that love into our hearts in this moment. That is the service. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and as opposed to doing outward work related to, I don't know, anything related to politics or social activism. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing for anybody to do if that's what they feel called to do in their heart. But the point here, and as they have said many times in many other sessions, if you really want to change the world, the best way to do it is to do the inner work inside of opening your heart and healing the traumas inside and being able to forgive whoever it is that you're having a really hard time forgiving. They have said many times that really is the best way to heal the world. And it's so empowering, as you said, and it's so liberating insofar as you don't have to worry about like changing anybody else or doing anything else on that larger social activist level. Has changed everything for me, for sure. Michael, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
I guess I would just expand on what Ashley was saying, how love is key. I mean, it really is. You know, I'd use a real simple example of somebody that cuts you off and then gives you the finger as they go past. I
Sorry
mean,
about that.
sure, you could take that very personally, and you could use the anger, the energy of that anger in the moment to get angry right back, speed up and do the same thing. Or you could, you could remember that wasn't at you, that something else is going on there, that no matter what somebody does to you, chances are there's something else in their life. It has nothing to do with you. 90% of the time, 95% of the time, it had nothing to do with what you did right there. And sometimes you got to remove yourself from the situation in the moment and not respond in the moment because there's a lot of anger there. And that's where I find it better to go back in later on and you can really analyze it and you can see that. When you don't judge somebody, when you can say, you know what, that wasn't at me, there's nothing to forgive. And you don't have to forgive. You're already not judging them. Sometimes it takes stepping back from that moment.
For sure. And that's really hard to remember in the moment, especially when you're like maybe in a hurry trying to get somewhere. And that's usually the exact time that something like that happens in traffic. So one of many pop quizzes that are part of the design of this third density illusion, interestingly enough. Did want to take a look at some other passages related to the throat chakra or blue ray. Did anybody have any last thoughts, reflections on anything relating to green ray before we move on?
I just wanted to bring up that my vision of the garden might be that entity smashing through and taking out the flowers, but we always can grow more flowers, right?
Oh, Jesus. Somebody taking a dump like right in the middle of your garden. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Things are about to get a lot more interesting and exciting in the coming weeks and years, for sure. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at some other passages, shall we? This is related to the throat chakra or blue ray. And in the raw contact session 48, question 7, Ra said, "There is always some difficulty in penetrating blue primary energy, for it requires that which your people have in great paucity, that is honesty. Blue ray is the ray of free communication with self and with other self." And on February 22nd, 2020, not too long ago, Kuo said, "As we move into the blue energy center, this is the first center in which the spiritual energies are outgoing, and the entity is the creator expressing itself in clear communication, including honest descriptions of the effect of the catalyst it is experiencing, inspirational messages that are spoken from clarity, and the unity that is found within the heart. Thus, the blue ray energy center has a kind of challenge which asks of the entity so passing through the center to be able to find the clarity and wisdom in situations which may be confusing or somehow dumbfounding in the respect of being able to understand the ultimate reason for the experience. This is a kind of initiation requires of the aspirant that it will be able to take into its own being the quality which seems to be unexplainable, and when this shadow side of self is found within the self, to then be able to accept it as the basic nature of one's being. That is, having a kind of grit or determination which is helpful to any seeker of truth moving along the path of polarization. And one more passage. On September 28th, 2019, Quo said, "The wisdom of the blue ray is the wisdom which sees the world about it in a clear light. The wisdom or the compassion of the green ray is that which sees all as objects and beings of the one creator that are to be loved without discrimination, without any holding back, shall we say. Thus, the blue ray entity may, as you have described, be somewhat cold in its estimation and communication with other entities if the green energy center within it has not been activated. However, it will not be, shall we say, fooled by other entities as easily as one who has the green ray open without the activation of the blue ray." I think this kind of goes back to what we said a little while ago about how green ray could be thought of as the ray of love, energy center of love, and the blue ray, the next one above it, can be thought of as the energy ray of wisdom, which kind of goes back to the densities, because fourth density is referred to as the density of love and understanding. And fifth density, the fifth chakra, can be considered the density of wisdom. So, yeah, our friends in the Confederation have said many, many, many times that pretty much everyone who is incarnated on the planet at this time came here to learn how to balance energies of love and of wisdom. In the case of love, maybe learning how to love all unconditionally, or in the case of wisdom, maybe learn how to not get fooled quite so easily by those who might capitalize on the naivete, let's say, of folks who don't know how to discriminate in how they love others or how they react with others. Any thoughts, reflections on any of this, Ashley?
Yes, I'm seeing that, like what you're saying, the blue ray energy center can be used for discernment, is a beacon of discernment. As our hearts kind of blast open, we need to have some steering mechanism so that we don't end up being too unbalanced in the green ray as it's expressing itself. And the blue ray, I also think, is a tool for how we take that abundance of love and express it into the world. We have so much power in our spoken word, and when the blue ray and green ray are in harmony, we're able to articulate that love in a way that is able to be received because of its clarity. And I love that it says the entity is the creator expressing itself in clear communication. So that to me is a call back that when it's a different level, if we're open, the essence of the one infinite creator can come through and express itself through us in inspirational messages, or even in just ways that allow us to break through catalyst, or someone is having trouble being able to say what they need to hear in the moment to free them.
Indeed.
And also, last thing, the shadow side of the self. I love that they brought up that there is this process of alchemizing the shadow and bringing it into the harmony. You're not trying to purify it out of existence or blast it out of the water or bury it. you are to integrate it, and that's a part of the process.
Especially now in these hyperpolarized political times, to look at those who
Yeah.
are perhaps on the other polarity, perhaps as our shadow selves, and not something that has to be eliminated or defeated, but integrated, what we call shadow work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that first part where they said Blu-ray requires that which your people have in great paucity, that is honesty. It reminds me of comics. I think that is kind of the role of stand-up comedians. They are probably before more than anything else honest in being able to see things that others may or may not have seen, and be able to speak to it in ways that people don't feel comfortable talking about, and being able to do it in a way that alchemizes and turns something that could be really uncomfortable or really negative into something funny that we can laugh at. There is magic in that for sure. Michael, anything to add?
I would only add that, yeah, what I said in the beginning, where the service to self entities, they'll bypass the heart and straight to Blu-ray. I think a lot of our world leaders out there, they speak with that Blu-ray without the heart. There's a lot of falseness in what has been said, and we can see the damage that it does.
Yeah. And yet they are doing what they came here to do, and Creator loves them apparently as much as Creator loves everybody else, which is the fucking maddening thing for everyone who is sitting around in quiet horror watching it unfold. But again, it really comes down to perhaps the inability to see with eyes of love and to see the face of love in everyone who appears in front of us, positive or negative. Really enjoying the input here, and everyone feel free to jump in there if you have any thoughts to add to anything. Feel free to jump in anytime. Susan, did you have any other thoughts, reflections to add?
Yeah, I'll echo what others have said. It's just I see love as the container that can hold truth, so that everything that is expressed as truth or your truth is held in love. So it's not being said it's said in a non-violent way, which is part of the yogic system. The other thing I would just add is that I find when I'm working with Catalyst and I bring it all the way up into the throat, that its belief systems are often, and it's your truth, and it's really hard. It's really, really hard to confront a strongly held belief system and going through that process of, well, why do we think it's true, and examining it a little bit further, whether you still hold on to it at the end or you release it. And I would say that that's part of the shadow work, which is also a very important thing for us to do.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it reminds me of something Michael said a few minutes ago that I hadn't really thought of before, but it makes sense. The bypassing of green ray and going straight to Blu-ray, and how, let's just say Donald Trump, for example. I mean, say what you will about that dude, but boy, he's really good at Blu-ray. He's obviously really good at persuading other people to agree with him, as well as those who followed him. And yes, in my opinion, same as yours, that is by using the power of falsehoods. And by not really having much empathy for what's going to happen to the people who are affected by that. Nevertheless, yeah, really good Blu-ray for sure. You got to respect that, if nothing else. Let's talk a little bit about third eye chakra, or indigo ray. I had a few passages that I wanted to look here. And this, of course, is for many people the coolest of the 7 chakras. In session 39, question 10, Ra said, "The indigo ray, though precious, is that ray worked upon only by the adept, as you would call it. It is the gateway to intelligent infinity, bringing intelligent energy through. This is the energy center worked upon in those teachings considered hidden, inner, occult. For this ray is that which is infinite in its possibilities. As you are aware, those who heal, teach, and work for the Creator in any way which may be seen to be both radiant and balanced are those activities which are indigo ray. And again, in February 22nd, 2020, Kuo said, as we move into the indigo ray energy center, we come to that center where there is the ability to experience changes in consciousness as a manner of being, so that one is able to become that which one seeks. The being able to become the light or the love or the unity of the one creation, then, is the challenge that is offered to the Indigo Ray Energy Center aspirant. This center then asks of the seeker to be able to take within the self the greater realms of the infinite creation that has no bounds, that has endlessness, that have infinity, that have immortality, and to be able to utilize these concepts so that the self is able to both experience the infinity of creation and the identity of the self. This is the challenge, which often takes various forms or shapes for each particular aspirant. I've used the word aspirant more times today than I have in my whole life, I think. And one more, November 17th, 2018, Kuo said, the one pointed focus that allows the seeker of truth to attempt and eventually attain the activation of the indigo ray is a great and primary portion of this ability to activate the indigo ray. For its eventual activation itself is of the spirit and uses the spirit as a shuttle for contact with the one infinite creator. However, we would also suggest that the indigo ray is the seal of that self, which is the one creator manifested as the creative power of love. This, when realized fully within any seeker of truth, gives such seeker a sense of worth, of self-worth, as you might say, that it is able to see itself as the one creator, whole and perfect, worthy in every respect, in order to continue processing catalyst, so that there is the gaining of the knowledge of the self at each lower energy center in a way in which these various aspects of the self are then put together in the indigo ray energy center, so that there is then a wholeness of being experienced by the seeker of truth. Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. This is where the real mystical, cool stuff comes in. The Doctor Strange infinity stuff, infinity stones comes in. This is the ray where one becomes that which they seek, the creator, the gateway to intelligent infinity, to be able to experience infinity, to experience being the one infinite creator. Any thoughts, reflections on this particular energy center, Michael?
Not right away. I was curious as to what Susan was thinking about this, or Ashley, and maybe I'll try at the end.
Nice. Susan?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to get all the way up there, but I did have an experience just a while ago where I thought something was wrong with me because I got like really quiet inside, like really still. I'm like, what's going on? And I talked with a friend and she said, I think you've just, found that inner peace that where you get the stillness. And so I don't have a lot. I'm still kind of processing it, and it would be like, geez, it'd be nice to get back there. But the getting to that space for even a moment or two in your meditation is really, really exceptional, I think is the word I'm trying for, to just even find that quiet, that peace, that serenity for even a moment. It's that sweetness that's in the center of the lotus flower, the 1,000 petal lotus. So that's kind of the image I carry around. And now that I've experienced it, I'm very grateful for it. And you aren't supposed to try and chase it. So I'm trying not to, but it's held as a sweet memory. And I think that's indigo ray. I think, yeah.
Could well be. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing that I'm imagining there are more than a few people watching this who could relate to. As you were speaking, I was kind of like thinking back to what you said earlier in the podcast about yellow ray being the center of power and so on and so on. And it is probably a good reminder that probably haven't said this yet, but obviously folks who are familiar with chakras already will probably see a lot of similarities between traditional teachings about chakras and what's taught here and about energy centers and the law of one. And yeah, they are not the same. I think anyone who knows much about chakras or has studied will find no, there's quite a few differences, including the numbers. I mean, there are quite a few traditions that study more than 7 chakras, 12 or whatever. And so I think what made me think of power as being related to the indigo ray is that it would just seem to kind of go in order. You've got green ray being the energy of love, blue ray being the energy of wisdom, and then the next level being the level of power, which in this case would be the power of the one infinite creator, being one with intelligent energy. I would think, to me, that has a lot of associations of power. But again, that's just my take on it. Ashley, anything to add?
Yes, Susan, I've experienced and regularly experienced that still point, and I do think it's an aspect of exploring that gateway to intelligent infinity. And because this is the indigo ray, it's kind of one of those metaphysical positive Pandora's boxes where it manifests in a myriad of ways. For the ceremonial magician who does the LBRP and such, they would experience anything from visions to contact with beings to explorations of astral realms to energy healing and being able to see their energy. So it really is a positive Pandora's box for all of these metaphysical gifts and expressions. But it has been said that even if someone isn't experiencing all these more psychically driven expressions of the opening of that indigo ray, they can still very much have it open through that still point connection with that aspect of intelligent infinity that is primal stillness, that kind of takes you back to that quietness in the womb where all is one, all is nurtured, all is sacred and safe. So I agree with you there. For me, I do have like a lot of the psychic expressions of the contact with the gateway to intelligent infinity, but also one that I value more is the connection to the joy of being and basking in the light of that gateway. And Ra said that one who experiences the gateway to intelligent infinity opening often experiences an unbridled joy. And I have that a lot. And so I have received catalyst on how to balance that and feel comfortable leaning into that in a very often dense world, because sometimes that can be perceived in a not so light way because it seems as if you're being indifferent or that you're pushing away the bad. But actually, it's just from feeling that oneness, feeling yourself as whole and perfect, feeling the creative power of love. That's where that joy comes from. That's where that power to move through catalyst and not be weighed down comes from. It comes from love. And that is, and the seat of the indigo ray. Thank you, Jonathan, for pulling this up so I can see the words again. It's absolutely that. Thank you.
So beautifully said. Yeah, thank you. Positive Pandora's box. Have not heard that expression before, but I really like it. It It's a beautiful visual that makes me think of all sorts of different things that I've never thought of before. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Anyone watching this on YouTube, you saw it here first. Unless you got it from somewhere else, in which case, I don't know. Michael, coming back to you, did you have anything wanted to share after hearing other reflections?
Yeah, now
Are you there, Michael?
there are moments reach that point, and it's hard to explain. It's there's a picture I've seen where there's a person meditating, and it's just a pure light coming from the top of the head. And that's the best way I could describe it. And it was a feeling. It was, and to call the light white or any color, it was just, you feel the purity of it. It's, I couldn't say there was any kind of coloration, but it was just like you felt the purity of that. And it was just pure. I couldn't even give it a color. But it truly was amazing. In that moment, there is nothing. There's no questions. There's nothing. It's just, there's everything and nothing. It was really amazing. A few times to read through.
Powerful experiences indeed. And I think we forgot to mention at the beginning of the podcast that we talked about prana, or intelligent energy, flowing upward from the earth through the red ray and out through the violet ray. But no, our friends in the Confederation have also said that you can call down intelligent energy from above, have it enter your violet ray and move downward through your energy ray centers, and have it possibly meet in the green ray or in the indigo ray. And all sorts of cool things happen. I think it would be fair to say when that happens. But again, you could consider that more the work of what they call the adept or the advanced student. And as they have said many times, you don't have to do that stuff to graduate. You don't have to do that stuff to move on. This is really about more opening the heart and just learning how to love unconditionally. There is no greater magic than that, I think it would be fair to say. Why don't anybody else have any last things to say about this before we look at our last set of passages? All righty. Well, there is another great phrase which has been used by our friends, and that is tone poems. I have a few passages I wanted to look at on the subject of tone poems. In session 54, question 8, Ra said, "The precision with which each energy center matches the original thought lies not in the systematic placement of each energy nexus, but rather in the fluid and plastic placement of the balanced blending of these energy centers in such a way that intelligent energy is able to channel itself with minimal distortion. The mind-body-spirit complex is not a machine. It is rather what you call a tone poem." Mind-body-spirit complex is what they call people, which is how you know you're channeling something weird, because nobody calls people mind-body-spirit complexes, but that apparently is what our friends in the Confederation call people, because we are a complex of mind and body and spirit. And unlike our conventional social view, they said, not a machine. A person is what they call a tone poem. In session 54, question 15, Ra said, "While it is the primary priority to activate or unblock each energy center, it is also a primary priority at that point to begin to refine the balances between the energies so that each tone of the chord of total vibratory beingness resonates in clarity, tune, and harmony with each other energy. This balancing, tuning, and harmonizing of the self is most central to the more advanced or adept mind-body-spirit complex. Each energy may be activated without the beauty that is possible through the disciplines and appreciations of personal energies, or what you might call the deeper personality or soul identity. We would suggest that the question of raising the level of the energy center activation is, for the evolving seeker, not the only question to be addressed, but rather it is of equal significance and increasing importance to engage in the process of balancing all of the energy centers in relation to one another. This requires continually going back down to the lowest and moving back up to the highest, and going back down and moving back up and going back down, so that one learns to play that tone poem, which is the energy system, with more and more skill and more clarity and more devotion to being the highest and the best and the clearest channel for the energies it is one's privilege to convey through the various expressions of the self. I love the imagery there. I mean, just the idea of picturing those energy centers that we looked at and going top to bottom and bottom to top and working with each one, refining the balance. It's like plucking the strings on a guitar, and each one resonates in a different frequency, and learning how to work with each energy center so that they blend together in harmony and form a song that is unique to every single person, every individual. Our friends of the Confederation have said they don't see us the way we see our reflection in the mirror. They see us as energy fields. They see us as vibrations, and that each person colors that white light from the creator in a different way, in a different pattern, like stained glass windows, and each is unique. Each is beautiful to them. Each is beautiful to the creator. Susan, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
All I can say is amen, brother. That's beautifully said. I love the guitar reference. And it just calls me back to the very first session with Ra, where they say that we're dancing in a ballroom of thought. We're dancing thoughts. We're a tone poem. It's all energy and it's all very beautiful. And I imagine when they look at us, they see us as columns of light with the different colors in them. And that's all I've got. It's just, it overwhelms me, the beauty of it.
Isn't that something? It is, me too.
Mhm.
Ashley, anything to add?
Just gushing about the beauty of that imagery, as you're saying, of us being this kind of symphony of light and energy, and just like how that must look in the metaphysical plane, just millions of lights flickering and flashing, each expressing its love or its distaste or its struggle or its success, all of the varying lights. It gives me a moment of seeing the preciousness that our friends in the Confederation must see us in as they look at us. So a bit of a love moment there, an acceptance moment, how precious humanity and all life is. And I love that they said going back down and going back up and going back down and going back up. This is the work, and it's okay to go back down to the lowest, because a lot of wanderers sometimes, or seekers in general, adepts, beat themselves up when they have moments where it seems like they've taken 10 steps back, be that in situations, their own responses to things, or life in general. But this is a part of the tone poem. This is a part of turning us into a beautiful symphony. We have to have those undulations of sound. We have to have those undulations of frequency. It's quite beautiful. That's all.
Yeah, and even the dark songs, even the death metal songs to creator
Yes.
is as beautiful
Screamo.
as the, Bach symphony or, whatever form of music that you like that's not death metal.
Yeah.
I love the way you're describing like the way the whole planet, I think, could appear to our friends in the
Yeah.
Confederation. The whole symphony of all of our tone poems blended together and blending with the energy of Mother Earth and fourth density vibrations. From outside of the illusion, it must be really, really beautiful to build that.
Yes. From outside.
From outside. Inside, it's a shit show, but from outside, it looks great. Yeah. Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, I've always loved this right here. I always see that. I get this image of through all your incarnations, through all our experiences, through all that, we're hyper tuning. Our vibration creates a sound, and can you imagine what that sound is with all the others that might be around you, and on a stage in front of creation, to be able to play those experiences like that. I mean, it's just, I get that image, and it's just, it always makes me smile.
It is. And it's a beautiful way, I think, to maybe wrap things up a little bit here. This brings us to the end of our time here. Where it would be good to ask, so where do we go from here? This is the part of the podcast where we try to take everything that we've looked at and discussed for this almost 2 hours and see if we can think about what might be some good takeaway lessons from here. So a few thoughts to consider. For one thing, hopefully remember that chakras, energy centers, are basically who you are energetically. You are not the thing that you see in the mirror. That's just a temporary illusion container for your spirit. And who you really are is probably more your chakras, your energy centers, who you are energetically and vibrationally. I think it was Nikola Tesla who said, frequency and vibrations is basically what everything in the universe is about. And so each of us has our own little part of that. Second of all, as I have said many times here, that balance is more important than strength. Rather than trying to strengthen your third ray chakra or root ray or anything else, finding that balance between all of them is really the key to growing spiritually and evolving. Which brings us to, if there was one chakra, which is probably the most important of all, it is probably the heart chakra or the green ray of unconditional love. We are at third density, and we are trying as a collective to graduate to fourth density, which means we're all kind of at the level of solar plexus or third ray chakra, and we're trying to graduate to the fourth density, to the fourth chakra, which is unconditional love. So learning how to unblock your lower energy ray centers to maximize the amount of energy going into your heart, learning how to open your heart when it becomes closed, learning how to love all unconditionally, including the ones that you really don't like the most. That really is the key, I would say, to where we go from here. And lastly, the whole idea of tone poem. Be a tone poem. Think of yourself as a series of energy centers, and learning how to play each of those like the strings on a guitar, and to make your own song. Whatever your song is, whatever your tone poem is, to remember who you are at the deepest level and why you're here to do that. That is, I would say, probably the most important thing to remember. Panelists, anything want to add to that? Ashley, any other last thoughts, reflections before we have a little pop quiz?
I would just say that our energy centers are our companions that can help us to work through experiences and evolve. And one of the keys is love. As far as working with them, if we can do nothing else, if we can love more and more in every way, then that will be good. That's good enough as far as cultivating the energy centers.
Well,
That's all.
Michael, any last thoughts, reflections, takeaway lessons you'd like to add here?
You know, I agree with you. I think one of the keys here is the green ray, is opening the heart chakra, and sometimes it's a difficult thing to start. It could be as simple as holding the door open for somebody. Be very yellow ray about it. It's a societal thing to do. Eventually, you're going to do it with a smile. You're going to do it because you want to, and because it makes somebody else smile, and then you're starting to do it more in your heart. It's as simple as something like that.
Yeah, and like any other muscle or exercise, might not be easy to start with, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. Susan, anything to add?
Wow, I don't know if I can beat what Ashley and Michael said. It's the only thing I would add is that love is the basis of the universe. That was the first distortion.
Indeed it was. And on any other respectable podcast, we would go ahead and end it on that note. But we are not going to do that because we still have one more important item of business to do, and that is the pop quiz. That is, of course, the thing that we like to do on this podcast, just to end our otherwise serious discussions on a somewhat lighter note, and maybe give you some interesting, fun things to share with your friends next time you're having a conversation about pop culture or whatever. So since, of course, we've been spending all of these last couple hours talking about different color energy ray centers, it seems only appropriate to have a pop quiz on this. And I am not talking about the album cover this came from. I am talking about colors. But just for the hell of it, anybody know what album cover this is from?
Dark Side of the Moon.
Is that Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin, one of those?
It is correct, Michael, and correct, random person watching on YouTube screaming at your screen. This is indeed the cover from Pink Floyd's 1973 album Dark Side of the Moon, which came out when I was like 11 years old and made a huge impression on me even at that early age, and listened to a lot of Pink Floyd all the way through high school and college. Ashley, were you alive in 1973? Were you alive when this album came out?
No, no, it would be 2 decades, a little over 2 decades before I would be born.
Wow. Do you know anything about Pink Floyd or Dark Side of the Moon?
I just know that image and I see it on t-shirts a lot.
Yeah, it was a big deal when it came out. It was like #1 album on the charts for like a record amount of time, at least at that time. I'm sure that has changed. But anyway, our pop quiz is about colors. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions about colors, multiple choice, see how many you can guess correctly. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can go ahead, say your answers out loud, and we can hear you through the camera. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something interesting that you didn't know before that you can share with others, you also won. Panel, are you ready for your first question? First question is this. What color was the last to be included in the English language? Was it A, blue, B, red, or C, black? Panelists, if you can just go ahead and say your answers out loud, that would be great.
I'll go with B, red.
B's a good guess. Susan? Michael?
Blue?
I'm going to say B as well, red.
Nice. Well, I was going to ask who's in blue states or red states, but I will just go ahead and pass that up. The correct answer is, in fact, A, blue. And it is a fascinating mystery for anyone who's not familiar with this already. Just try Googling up the words blue, last color, and you'll find a lot of really interesting stories about this. Apparently in the 1850s, British scholar and soon-to-be Prime Minister William Gladstone was one of the first people to note that ancient works of literature had no words for the color blue. The most notable example being Homer's Iliad, the story of Ulysses. The color black is mentioned 170 times. The color white is mentioned 100 times. Red is mentioned 13 times. Yellow and green are mentioned 10 times each. And yet, for some reason, the word blue is not even mentioned once. Even though he describes things that we would refer to as blue, like the Mediterranean Sea is described as wine dark instead of blue. It just seems like an odd thing that for some reason the ancient Greeks did not see the color blue when it was every fucking place around them, from the sea to the sky. It was just, I can't think of how they could not come up with a word for that color that they used to paint their roofs with later. And it's not just ancient Greece. Apparently, other ancient languages, including Hebrew, Indian, Icelandic, blue was the last word that was added to their language. And even some groups today, apparently the indigenous Himba people of Namibia don't have a separate term for blue. They don't make any distinctions between blue or green. Strangely enough, go figure. Do you guys know anything more about this? Does anybody have any insights into why this would be? It's still a mystery to me.
I
No,
don't
that
know
sky's not
anything.
green.
Anybody? No.
I don't
As-
have any, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Ashley.
I don't have any official backed by science thoughts on it, but my just own personal thoughts would be maybe it's like it might be psychological, like there's something about the blue, because every color has a frequency. There's something about the blue being the last to be perceived and the last to be communicated as a color, which is interesting if you think about the blue ray, which is being that center of communication, and yet you're not able to communicate blue. Is there some kind of metaphysical, collectivistic, human thing that's alluding to why they couldn't express blue? Did it have to do with their consciousness as a collective, why they struggled to give voice to blue? I know I took it in a left field, but that just came to mind.
Your guess is as good as mine. It remains a mystery to me, and I have not, in the little bit of research that I did this online, have not come up with a convincing explanation unless everyone was colorblind to blue up until a certain period of time. I don't know, but I mean, it's in the sea, it's in the sky, who knows? You guys ready for your next question? How about this?
Yeah.
The human eye can detect the most shades of which color? Is it A, blue, B, red, or C, green?
I'm
would
going to
go with-
say green.
I agree, green.
I'm gonna say green as well. That would explain the
Ooh.
blue more.
Nice. Why is that? Why do you think
Because
green?
I think people could they could mistake certain shades of blue for green. That it could be very close to green, like you say, when you see the green, sometimes you look at water and it has a green tint to it. I just think some shades of green could be mistaken as blue. So maybe if that's true, then that could
Yeah.
explain it a little bit.
That makes sense. Susan, Ashley, any other thoughts?
I just find that there's a lot of variation in nature in the green color, from the, the brand new leaves coming out to the dark pine needles. I just, that would be my reasoning.
Nice. Well, all three of you are correct, as well as random person watching this on YouTube who said green. You are correct as well. Yeah, apparently so. The human eye has three types of cone cells for detecting color, and the middle wavelength cone is the one that is most sensitive to green light. Also, as you may remember from the Pink Floyd album cover, yeah, green is like right in the middle of Roy G. Biv. So it is the color that our eyes apparently are most sensitive to. Well done. How about your last question? Which combination of colors has been shown to stimulate appetite the most? Is it A, red and yellow, B, yellow and green, or C, blue and white?
I'm going to go with A, red and yellow.
I agree, right.
Say
A,
red and yellow too, because I see a lot of restaurants that color.
yeah.
You are correct.
Because
Yes, yes, all three of you. And again, random person on YouTube watching this who said red and yellow. You are correct. Yeah, the color red apparently has been classified as a hungry color because it has been shown to stimulate appetite for food. Same thing with the color yellow. So when you put them together, it's kind of like a double whammy, which is why it's true. There are many, many different restaurants, fast food restaurant logos that use red and or yellow. Next time you're out driving around, take a look, and you may or may not notice and pick up on that. Fascinating stuff. Hey, panelists, you did great on this, and you did great today. I can honestly say you are the best panel that we have had yet. And although I do say this to every panel on every episode, I really mean it this time. You guys were awesome. It was super fun. Any goodbyes, thank yous you want to say to our viewers? Michael?
No, that's about it. I've really appreciated this. I've had a lot of fun. I always do have fun on these podcasts. I just want to thank you for this.
Indeed. Susan?
I duplicate that. Thank you so much, everyone who tuned in, and hopefully you had some food for thought.
Indeed. Ashley?
Yes, to you guys here, much love and thank you for sharing this time with me. I'm really great things. It really enriches me and helps me to reflect on what I've learned and to tweak things here and there in my own growth. And to the viewers, hi guys, thank you for staying this long. Seek the law of one, you can't go wrong. Love is all that there is, and I wish that joy and bliss will be yours forever. Adonai.
Indeed. Panelists, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. For everyone who's watching, for anyone who's watching this still at this point, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are thinking of you, sending our love, and receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai. Namaste.
Adonai.